Romans 15:4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Shalom, will praises to Yahweh, Bashem El Shai, Bashem Al Rakar Kodash. Double orders unto the apostles and elders of great millstone that rule well, and shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Paya Allah of the GMS London camp, and this video was entitled Joseph and the Famine. Okay, and I'm inspired to do. I believe Lord willing, if the Lord wills, if it's of His will. I basically want to delve into stories in the scriptures, right? And this is the first one I'm gonna start off with, right? And basically, interestingly enough, the title of this excerpt, if you look it up, would be called Joseph and the Famine. But the name Joseph in the Hebrew, the Lashon Kodash, is Yahweh Sup, which means to add. Okay, and interestingly enough, he added on to the children of Israel by having Ephraim and Manasseh, all right, or Manasseh and Ephraim, which became part of the children of Israel. Okay, so he added. Technically, Ephraim came in his stead because Joseph and the tribe of Ephraim are interchangeable, but Manasseh got added as well. All right, so there's that. But then the name of this excerpt is called Joseph and the Famine. All right, and if you know anything about famine, the word famine goes back to fames, which means hunger. And the reason why you're hungry, or that there is hunger, is because there's a lack of food, in it. So with that lack of food, Joseph, living up to his namesake, was at the addition of it all. All right. So I'm gonna delve into this story, and it's short. The Lord willing, you be edified in accordance with Romans 15:4. All right. It says Genesis 47:13, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. So the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. All right, and this translates to the time we're in very well, because we're in spiritual Sodom and Egypt. All the things that were done in Egypt are being done today. All right, like you had all the male babies being killed under 2 years old. All right, in Egypt, well, you had it even worse in this kingdom, because you have a thing known as abortion. All right, where Jake babies are basically being killed in the womb of their mother. Okay, they ain't even being born; they're being killed in the womb of their mother. They don't even attain nourishment. Okay, but that's in the same light as the land of Egypt, right? So all these things that happened before are gonna happen again, and we're basically in that time of heading into the famine. All right, so it says, and there was no bread in all the land for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. All right, so extended from the land of Egypt onto the land of Canaan. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt, right? And in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house, all right? So what that's saying is that basically Joseph managed to gather all resource in the form of money from the land of Egypt and Canaan, because they all bought the corn, all right? And if you go back to Genesis, the 41st chapter, I believe, it tells you about Joseph breaking down the dreams, all right? The 7 years of plenteous and the 7 years of famine. And basically by putting a quote-unquote contingency plan in place, or basically stocking up reserves of grain, they managed to get a footing ahead of everyone in this whole. So when this predicament came about, they were up basically, all right. and they could capitalize off this moment, as you can see, by taking all the gold, all the money, gold, silver, all right, from all those in the land of Canaan and the land of Egypt, because they wanted to buy corn, all right. So it says, verse 15, and when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. All right, so they were hungry, and they came, all of them, and they basically said, yo, give us some bread, man. Give us bread. And because they ain't got no money, all right? And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail, all right? So basically, when we deal with money, when you go to the book of Genesis, the 13th chapter, the 2nd verse, it tells you that Abraham was rich in gold, silver, and cattle, okay? Which basically denotes wealth, all right? By having gold and silver and cattle, livestock, that's why it's called livestock, because it's a live stock, all right? Basically, that denotes wealth. So after he had taken all their money, their gold and silver, what was left to take? Their cattle. So it says, and Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fell, all right? And that's what happened. So what I wanted to backtrack to was that's what's happening now, dealing with the money, right? They're basically sucking up the monetary system and the resources of the people by taking away, with the lockdowns that we have right now. We're experiencing a thing known as gradualism, right? A technique which Esau has used going back to the Romans, all right? Just read the book of 1st or 2nd Maccabees, the 8th chapter, from verse 1 to 4, all right? And it'll break it down how by patience and law that they basically the Romans were able to take over any nation, okay? And this is the same thing that's being done in this kingdom right now. When you have these small businesses going under, and you have a lot of people losing their properties or their businesses, where it's these resources don't just disappear, they're translated, right? That's why it's known, we have a thing, that's why money is known as currency, right? The word currency goes back to current, dealing with, where'd you find a current? In a movement of war, all right? It's called a current. So it's always moving, all right? Currency is always moving. So what's happened is the people that had the currency before, it's moved on to new owners, and the new owners are Pharaoh, and basically Pharaoh, more or less, right? Being the banking elites of Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPonts, and the Gays, right? So it says, verse 17, and they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, all right? And for their flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year, all right? So he only gave them enough food, all right, for a year, okay, in exchange for their cattle. So it says, verse 18, okay, when that year was ended, they came unto him, and I'm guessing he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. Okay, yeah, sorry, let me read on. Verse 18, when that year was ended, they came unto him the 2nd year, and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord. So that was 1 year that took place, it took 1 year for Pharaoh to acquire the money, the silver, the gold, the livestock of all the Egyptians and the people in Canaan. Oh yeah, it said the Egyptians, because Pharaoh was a sovereign all over the whole land of Israel. Salakia, over the land of Egypt. But then the citizens within Egypt were sovereigns in their own right. they had their own possessions, okay? And as you're going to see, they had their own land. Now, you people of this day and age, you don't have nothing, right? You just have money. And even the money you have isn't real money because it's FRN notes, fiat currency, all right? If you take a pound note, a £5 note, £10 note, £20 note, £50 note, what you're going to find there is that a promise to pay the bearer £50, all right? £50 being the fiat currency because it doesn't hold the weight and value of silver and gold that it once used to have, because these are credit notes. They were once upon a time credit notes for silver and gold, but now they're just paper currencies with no backing, all right, no real true value except from the faith that's put into it by the people, all right. So it really will show you, as I'm going to read the next verse, a few verses, going to show you that they had sovereignty, all right. They had land, livestock, gold and silver, all right. But in you today, you don't even have that. We're so far along gone into gradualism that you don't even realize this is we're at the last tier of this. As we're going to read it, you're going to see where we're at with this, because this happened. All this I'm reading happened years ago. This happened before you were born, all right? So it says, verse 18, when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also have our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our lands. All right. Therefore shall we die before thy eyes, both we and our land. Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. Right. So they said they're gonna sell their land, even more so their own bodies, unto Pharaoh, okay, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate, all right? Because in the famine, what you experience is you could be planting seeds and seeds upon seeds, but guess what? When they're sold and it's time to reap, there's nothing there to reap, all right? Because there's a lack of bread, food, all right? So it says, verse 20, and Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's, okay? So all the wealth was translated into the hand of Pharaoh, okay? Because the famine was too much for them. It prevailed over them. Verse 21, as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof, right? So he basically moved them from their land that they own, and land masses that they own, and moved them into cities, hubs, all right? Kind of like you have cities today, right? Only the land of the priests brought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned to them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. All right? So they didn't get touched, basically, the priests. Okay? Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have brought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for the food of your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives, let us find grace in thy sight, of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And this is getting ready to happen now, all right? Because according to the Hebrew law, which the elites of this society believe, it tells you in Exodus 21st chapter, if a servant's pleased to serve their master and they love their master, they'll be brought before the judges, and they'll be all basically an earring placed in their ear as a sign of servitude unto their master. All right. And that's what Esau wants to do with the RFID chip. He wants to implement a RFID chip in the hands of the people to basically do what? To say that they're servants unto Pharaoh forever. All right. And that's being done by gradually wearing down the morale and the will of the people. All right. So it says, and Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. Right? And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. So you see what happened to all those in Egypt and Canaan? They lacked bread. They had nothing, all right? And Joseph was the mediator in that deal. But then it tells you about Israel. They dwell in the land of Egypt. They were there as well. But they were in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions, and they grew. So they had food, and they were good, man, all right? So that's part of the things that were written aforetime, were written for our learning, that we know in this time that we're heading into, to have faith, to know that the Heavenly Father's got us, that when the world, everything's falling apart and they're selling themselves into slavery and basically doing anything to in hopes of survival, that the Most High is gonna allow us to dwell safely, and we're gonna have bread to eat, right? And a covering from this time to come. So with that, man, I pray you're edified. Say shalom.